I'm happy to announce we have our third t-shirt in our series. This one says Wood for Good. It's in military green. We've enlarged the logo to make it easier to see. Help us spread our cause. Get yourself a t-shirt.
Okay, we're live. Hello, everyone.
Hi, folks. You ready? Megan, stand right there. Stay right there. Stay right there. So, first announcement, we got our new t-shirts. Turn around.
I wasn't prepared for the backdrop.
Wood for Good. And the nice new logo. Jake had them increase the size of the logo. Our military green.
Frick had them also flipped.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah. Oh, yeah, you did. So the heart's on the far left, and the writing is farther over so you can see it better. Anyway, so tonight's topic is our question and answer. We got a lot. I read through 4, 5, how many pages?
5 pages.
5 pages, and we go through and we kind of cross off any that aren't that great, but they were all fantastic. In fact, we could spend the whole night, but we won't. Voice is strained. I didn't talk for the last 2 days, preserving it for this, so hopefully it'll hold out the whole time. We have 3 guests on tonight. You're going to meet my daughters Annika and Loren, who now work for us. I wanted you to put a name to the face, because if you buy something from us, the first time you purchase, you hear from me, and subsequent purchases, you hear from either Annika or Loren will call you and thank you for your order. So I thought you might like to meet them. They're out in Calgary. And then we're going to have Jack Lane, and Jack Lane is going to be our military guest tonight. He's going to talk about a little bit about the Purple Heart, but also about our bench brigade. Yeah, he's quite excited about it, and he's in charge of it. A couple of other things real quick. I'll mention them again later on tonight. So we're going to do our giveaways a little bit different. I want to motivate you. So at every 1,000 increment in donations for the Purple Heart Project, and I have to tell you what that is, just in case you're unfamiliar or you're tuning in for the first time, Purple Heart Project is where 6 times a year we bring in 6 combat wounded veterans from all over the world, and we cover their airfare, their hotel, their meals, and we treat them to a 6-day, very intense hand tool workshop. We go from 8 in the morning until 11 at night for 6 days. At the end of that, we send them each home with approximately $3,500 worth of premium tools, stuff like you see on my tool cabinet. And now we also get them a bench. So every vet will go home and there'll be a bench waiting for him. Compliments of some awesome volunteers you'll hear about a little bit later. So we do that class once a month from May through October. Of course, with this coronavirus, and I don't have it. We had to move our May class to the end of August. We just had to move our June class to the 1st of October. And we got our fingers crossed on July. So if you're in the July class, the borders have been closed until the 21st of June. And on that day, we have to make a decision. If they open the borders, we're good to go.
Well,
what?
About a couple days before, you know if they're going to extend it or open it. So we'll know.
So as soon as we can. We have to have time to get plane tickets for all the vets. We'll try to squeeze in June class somewhere. I don't know where. Probably in September.
July class.
July class, yeah. If we don't.
I think November is when we have it open.
Well, we're doing everything we can to make sure it works. Don't forget that in your prayers. And the other thing I wanted to tell you was T-shirts. Oh, yeah, over here. So customer from Colorado, remember his first name, Jake? Marty had a great idea. Called today. And he said, Rob, I'd like to actually donate one of the tools that you give to the vets. And I'd like to write a personal note and mail it to you and have it put in there so that when the vet gets it, he can read my message. And I thought, that's a really good idea. Money kind of gets used in things, and while it's appreciated, if the vet got to take a tool home that somebody actually donated, every time he picks it up, he's going to think about it. So what I did is I picked up a few tonight. So these are some of the things that we give them. So this is a dovetail saw. This is actually, you know what? We can give them the dovetail saw. So we'll call this a crosscut saw. The sharpening kit, a number 6 and number 4.5. Now there's a lot more than this, but that's just some of them. So if you want to be, if you want to if you want to supply one of the tools or all of them to one of the vets, we have 36 coming, so all of this times 36 is what we have to get for them. If you want to be the one to do that, just go ahead and order it tonight online and email me. That's the best way. Do you know how they make a note on an order?
There's a place to add it.
Nobody can find it. So email me, Rob@RobCosman.com. Now Luther's going to freak out because I did that. Email me and just tell me, Rob, I want to donate that too. And then next thing you need to do is handwrite a letter to me, address it to us, to the vet, and we'll make sure it goes in the box, and that when he or she gets the tool, they'll know it's coming from you. Nice connection. Okay. Without any further ado, and I think of other things. Just tell you quick by way of introduction. So Jake's behind the camera tonight. Jake, do a quick pan when I say these. Spin the camera around so they can see you.
Michelle Benson is pleading for the borders to be open.
Yeah, she's fasting even. Put the camera on yourself so you can say hi. They always want to see you.
This nifty apparatus allows this.
There's Jake.
Oh, you need a haircut.
There's me. There's Frick. There's Frick. Megan over here. Megan, what are you taking care of? You're taking care of donations tonight. Frick is, what are you doing, Frick?
Screwing up the tech.
I produced this.
Oh, he produces this.
Okay.
And behind, and notice everybody's adorned in khaki green, and behind Frick is my oldest son, Rex. Rex, what are you doing tonight?
I'm the gopher.
You're the gopher.
Go for this, go for that.
Gopher. Now we also have Ken Anthony on tonight. Ken will be answering questions. Luther's on tonight. Luther will be answering questions. Super Dave is on tonight. He better be. He'll be answering questions. And I can't think of anybody else.
And your daughters.
And my daughters. Yeah, Annika and Lorraine. So once we get the audience up a little bit, we'll pick them up. Yes, Rex?
Increments?
Yeah, I mentioned it. Yeah, every 1,000. So every time we hit 1,000, every time we hit an increment of $1,000 in donations, we will up the number of prize. So we give away a $100 gift certificate with each $1,000 total that gets donated. Okay, let's go. Questions.
All right.
Tell me who it's coming from.
All right.
And read it slowly.
Nice quick one to start. This comes from Roger from Milesboro, Maine. How do you keep your sharpening station clean where it is located and keep all manner of dust, shavings, and bench crap off of it?
Okay, first of all, Roger, if you're in Maine, as soon as the border's open, feel free to come visit us. You're not that far. We're an hour from Calais. So yeah, that's an issue, especially if I'm doing something. I always get crap over on here, and I thought it would be kind of nice to have some kind of a little. I remember I asked you that one time, Jake, about those blinds.
Yes.
That you could pull it down and just lay it over like that. But other than that, I don't. It just gets messy. You just brush them off. No big deal. I'm not a clean freak, in case you didn't notice. Okay, next.
This comes from Ken Shaw, Brantford, Ontario, Canada.
Ken or Kent?
Ken.
Ken
Shaw.
Shaw. Hi, Ken.
What are the requirements to sharpen the dovetail saws?
Well, you need a vise. I'll actually show you that. Come with me, Jake. Where is the homemade vise?
Down back, isn't it?
I thought it was in one of these. It's not in that one. Where's that other? Yeah, you're coming into the bowels. So here is a.
The wooden one.
That's a real vise. So what you would do? I'll take a saw that's.
You should tell them it's very nice.
Yeah, it's beautiful. The sun is shining. So you have to secure your blade close. Actually, I prefer to sharpen this way. You have to secure your blade right, and you can have the handle on. This just happens to be one that doesn't have the handle on it. You have to secure blade, excuse me, close to the teeth. If you're up too high, it's going to vibrate terribly. And you can make a vise out of a couple pieces of plywood. In fact, if I can find it, I'll show it to you. If not, Tay Frid wrote 3 books on woodworking, excellent books. One was on finishing, I think one was on bending, and one was on joinery. And in the joinery one, he shows you how to make a very simple saw vise. This is not rocket science, particularly a dovetail saw. So if you can, and you can find these vices at garage sales. Now, what you want is a 4 or a 5-inch double extra slim taper file. Stay here, I'll just run down and get it because I thought I had it in that drawer. You want a good file, and when I say that, I mean the cheap ones, instead of being nice, having nice sharp corners, instead they are almost rounded and they give you waves instead of nice sharp teeth. Grobet, G-R-O-B-E-T, and I think there's an umlaut over the E, out of Switzerland, makes, as far as I'm concerned, the best ones that are currently available. Handled. So what you're going to do, and on my dovetail saw, these teeth have a 0-degree cutting face. So if you want, you could set that in the gullet. The gullet is the V between the peaks. You could set your square, or anything square actually. Here's a piece of brass. Set that on there like that, and then hold your file so that you know where square is. Now, what you can do at that point is if you took a piece of a popsicle stick with a hole in the middle and stuck that on the end, and then you could tell whether or not you were tipping. And at this point, you simply, 1 stroke, depending how bad it is, you may need 2 strokes. Everyone tells you to lift it up. I don't. Why? Because if you lift it up, that means you got to try to set it back down where it was. Very difficult to see. Then I just ride over that one to the next one. 1, 2, ride over, 1, 2, ride over, 1, 2. Now, when I do this, I'm kind of pushing in that direction because with each stroke, you're sharpening the face of 2 teeth. This one and the face of the one that's producing the 0-degree cutting face. And you want to be square to the run of the blade. So the blade is this, and you want to be square in this direction. And there's no fleam, there's no angle in the face of these teeth, so that's where you're square. And as far as level, you want to be level. Use your entire blade, or use your entire file, that is. And it's just 1 or 2 strokes. If it's not very dull, it only takes 1 stroke. You don't want to miss any. Now, Tom Lee Nelson told me this tip. You could go in and take a Sharpie or a felt tip marker and paint that whole surface. That way, if you happen to get lost, or if you happen to come out of a gullet and jump 2 teeth, you can see that you missed that one and you can go back. It doesn't take very long. It takes about 7 minutes to sharpen the whole saw. And that's something on a dovetail saw you might need to do once every, if you're cutting dovetails every weekend, you might want to touch it up every 1.5 years, 2 years. Most people don't mind the mess. We just unpacked a bunch of stuff and I didn't get time to clean up yet. Yeah, actually, this place is in pretty good shape, considering how busy we are here, working until crazy hours of the night. Okay, Frick, next.
Sorry.
You.
I know what you told me. How do you? Okay, this is from Bob Heller from Pennsylvania. How do you hold a chisel?
Bob.
How do you hold a chisel for cutting dovetails properly?
Well, Bob, I don't know if there is a properly. I'll show you how I like to do it. And there's actually 2 different ways that I do it. And I don't know why I switch from one to the other. It's just sometimes. I don't use a holdfast. And people ask
Which
that.
is another question.
Yes. I
answer.
never did. Don't feel any need to. And that's the only reason I can tell you. Now, I would have a backup block. So if I was chopping dovetails here, what I typically, sometimes I'll hold it way up like this on the handle. Wow, that's a beautiful handle. Where'd that come from?
AMI Woodworks.
Ah, Ahmed. So I hold it like this. I've got this hand, my right hand is laying on the board. So it's kind of an anchor point. My thumb comes in here like this so I can guide it into the gauge line. And then I'm standing like this. Now you'll also notice that I'm chopping in this direction. Pardon me. I'm not chopping like this. I'm not chopping like this. I'm chopping like this. That allows me to see plumb. I do not want to slope forward. I want to either be plumb or slightly undercut. Slightly. And I just feel my way into that marking gauge, which I'm going to go ahead and put one on there because this is a good object lesson. I wish we had that telephone. I love to hear that little ding. Every time you hear that, that's just somebody making a donation. So you want a marking gauge that'll give you a nice crisp line. And then what you do is you just move that until you feel the chisel drop into it and it locks it. So at this point, you just go ahead and give it a whack. Sometimes I'll hold the chisel like this and I'll go in there. And I've got my finger, my index and my middle finger is resting on the wood, and that allows me to accurately place it. Now, if your chisel doesn't have, these chisels, these are IBC. If you're going to buy chisels, go buy IBC. I think it's the best you can get. But they have a little landing right there to protect your finger. So you've got a bevel here meeting the back, that little landing. But still, it's a pretty sharp edge because I've polished the back, and that leaves that edge right there quite sharp. So maybe that's the reason why I've migrated up here to the top. As I get older, my hands get softer.
Ooh.
What? Well,
That's cedar.
This is cedar, and that it just crushes. So when you're using cedar, a little off topic, that's where you want to come in and use 17 degree. And I would say that the cedar is the extreme version of crushing. I mean, I have this could probably stand a little bit of sharpening, but that'll just show you a quick reference of what'll happen. Okay, next.
All right, this comes from Voder, is his name? Voder Van Eetsen from Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan.
Voter?
And his question is, I noticed you don't use the 6,000 grit stone in your last sharpening video anymore like in the past. Did you remove that from your sharpening technique, and do you notice a difference?
Nope. No, I didn't remove it. So here's the reason why. When you're doing your chisels, you need to keep the entire back flat. When you're doing your plane blades, you use the ruler trick. Okay? So, that's the high angle. When you're doing all that surface area, you're going to start off with the 1,000 grit. That way you get rid of all the grinding scratches and you get it flat. Now, if you want to finish at 16,000, you can't go from 1,000 to 16 on a big surface area like that. That would be like sanding, starting at 120 and then jumping up to 320. Well, you're never going to get rid of the 120 grit scratches. So when I do the chisel back, and this is a one-time procedure when they're new, you go from the 1,000, then you go to the 6,000 to remove the 1,000 grit scratches, then you go on to the 16,000 to remove the 6,000 grit scratches. And that is the only time that I use the 6,000 grit stone. It's kind of a waste, but it's a necessary evil. You got to have it. My sharpening of the edge, once the backs are prepared, is merely 1,016. I never do anything in the middle. When you're doing a blade, plain blade, you don't need to use the 6,000 because even on a brand new blade, you take your ruler and apply the Charlesworth ruler trick on the 1,000 grit stone, and there's where you create your back bevel. Then because it's such a small surface area, you can jump right over to your 16,000 and go in and polish your 16,000, or polish your little back bevel, and you're done. So hear me again. The only time I use the 6,000 grit stone is when we're preparing, and I get Jake to do it, when we're preparing a brand new chisel. So once you're done, your chances you're ever going to use that 6,000, pretty slim. Hate to tell you that, but that's just the way it is. Okay.
All
Good
right.
question.
Next up is Joey Walsh from North Carolina.
Hey, Joey.
When buying materials for projects, do you buy S2S or rough sawn lumber, and how much extra thickness do you look for?
So S2S means surface on two sides. So that means you would go, in case you don't understand what he's asking, I don't even have an example of it. Maybe I could say this is. So here's a piece of English walnut. It's been surfaced on this side and that side, but the edge has not been done. Well, actually it has. That was a bad example. Sorry.
It has?
Yeah, it is. I'm just going to have to tell it to you then. I buy, and there's a pros and cons to this too. I buy most of my lumber rough. So it's as it came right from the kiln. So the lumberjack cuts down the tree sits in a pond somewhere until it gets milled, cut. It's cut up into boards. It goes from there to being air dried for a period of time. From there it goes to a kiln. And from the kiln it goes to a lumberyard where you go buy it. So it started out as 1 inch, maybe a little thicker. And by the time you get it, it's going to be a little less than that. But 1 inch rough, 4/4, 4/4, 1 inch, means you're going to yield at least 3/4. Sometimes you're lucky you can get 7/8. Usually you can get 13/16, but you're guaranteed to get 3/4. If you buy surfaced on two sides, the advantage of that is you get to see what you're getting. When you buy rough wood, let's go back there, Jake, see if we can find something.
Hey, Frank.
We're liking this freedom, Frick, of being able to walk around.
From the live next
Yeah.
All we do is sit around and read newspaper. So, if you buy,
I think this piece here. No.
if you buy rough lumber in 4/4
Isn't
thickness.
that pine that we buy? Rough?
Well, that's, yeah, but pine, yeah.
For the boxes?
You know, I got to get this mess cleaned up. All right, so here's an example. That's not so bad, but you can't really see the surface very well. You actually can see that better than normal. That's a piece of pretty crappy walnut. So when you buy it, you can't really tell, or you don't have a really good idea of what you're actually getting because you can't see it. So when you buy it surface on two sides, they've already kind of skip planed it. Sometimes they do it with a belt sander, belt thickness sander, and at least you can see the exterior. Here's a piece of oak. Okay? So you really can't tell what that surface looks like when it's in its rough state like that. But if you bought something like this, here's an example. This has actually been surfaced on two sides. So that side's been surfaced, that side's been surfaced. The edge is rough, the edge is rough. And that is probably 7/8. That's actually almost 15/16. So if you can buy surfaced on two sides and have it come out that thick, well, the advantage is you get to actually see what you're getting. But I don't think you're always going to get it that thick. So if you buy it surfaced two sides and it's thinner than that, well, by the time you go home and surface it to get it nice and flat, you may be down below 3/4. I didn't like the answer I gave you, but hopefully you can see through all that rambling and get some kind of a answer out of it. Sorry. Next.
All right, so this question comes from Jim Dawson, who's in the chat with us tonight.
Hi, Jim.
What would be a good first project for just starting out with hand tools?
Well, that's a really good question. Probably has 100 answers. Well, I'll show you what our first project is. When we started the hand tool workshop back in 2011, I wanted to do something that would be, and when we did this, we started with rough lumber. And everything was processed entirely by hand. So I'm assuming what Jim is meaning is no power tools. So if we had something too big, I thought it might scare them away. So all of the wood in this started off rough and had to be processed. Starting off with a scrub plane, working through to a smoother. And then, of course, everything was sized with a handsaw and then brought down to final dimension with a plane, shooting board, panel gauge, all kinds of hand tools. So it involved dovetails, cutting a groove, a lid. The only disadvantage to that, actually, you know what? I got something even better. This is probably the most, no, walk again, Jake. We're going to get our steps in today. When we first
we're gonna
did
go back to a wired system.
when we first did our very first week-long hand tool workshop, we used to make that. I don't know if you can see it, but that's a shaker lap desk. I'll grab it real quick. I showed this not too long ago, but obviously not everybody got to see it. Now the nice thing about this was the size was manageable. The people making it were able to transport it home if they flew in. So this was a shaker lap desk. Through dovetails, groove cut on the inside to house the bottom as floating bottom. A little bit of work in learning how to glue up two pieces. So creating a glue joint with hand tools for the first time is a little bit challenging. There's a little bit of slope on there. We learned to mortise hinges. The lid had tongue and groove, to keep the lid from cupping. We had hardwood strips along both sides, tongue and groove, allowed it to float. We had a hardwood strip glued on the back. That's the part that the hinges went into. And it was a good project. It was fun. And it was, it's always tough to try to come up with a project in a class with 12 people of varying skills and not have half the class bored on Wednesday when they're finished, or the other way around, nobody finishes. And I think we had about 60% of the people would get that finished in a week. So I thought that was pretty good numbers. So something manageable. Don't bite off more. Don't tackle anything too big. You want to, and I might add this, pine was a wonderful wood to learn hand tools. Here's the reason why. Two things. Number one, it cuts easily. That means you can work on your technique without getting exhausted by the extra effort you have to put in. Number two, if your chisels and your planes aren't perfectly sharp, it will not respond. Fibers will just crush. So actually there's three reasons. So number one, easy to cut, easy to plane, allows you to perfect your technique. Number two, your tools must be extremely sharp. And number three might actually be the most important. You have to be extremely careful. If you lay your chisel down on a piece of pine and you drop it too hard, you're going to have a dent in the wood. If you're cleaning out between two tails and you pry against the edge of the board anywhere, you're going to leave a mark. So you learn an element of finesse or a level of finesse working pine or something soft like that, then you wouldn't necessarily pick up working on a piece of maple. So hopefully that gives you some answers. Okay, next, Frick.
All right, next comes from Aaron Dragg in Las Vegas.
Hi, Aaron.
He wants you to talk about the issue of sharpening your blade such that the angle exceeds the bedding angle of the plane and stops being able to pick up a shaver.
Well, Jake, would you like to cover that one?
I would if I was not holding the camera. Actually, that blade's right here.
So, Jake and I were working upstairs today, and every once in a while he likes to throw me a curve. And Kenzie, my daughter, number... Oh, I say this every time. Who? Oh, yes. Daughter number 6, Kenzie. Very independent. She's
not daughter number 6.
No, child number 6, daughter number 4. She extremely independent. So she took the upstairs of this place, she and my wife, because we're just too busy. And they've renovated. We'll take you up and show it to you in one of these next episodes. So the countertop that she chose is from IKEA, I know. And it's particle board, 1-inch particle board covered in oak for a countertop.
Oak wood.
Oak wood. So it's about a 16th inch thick veneer on the top. It's got a band on the front and back. And the ends, they actually slip in a little veneer of end grain to make you think you're actually getting solid wood. But the walls up there were so bad. Anyway, we had to add a bunch on. I had to add a bunch of white oak onto the back of this thing. So we had to flush it up. So I haven't been 100% the last couple of days. So I asked Jake to come down and bring me up the plane, 4.5. And I'm planing, and I could not, for the life of me, pick up a shaving. I'd get a little, and it would leave. And what is going on with this thing? So I don't always think of this as the first problem, because...
No, don't take it in.
Why?
I found it's easier to check with it in.
So, when you first learn freehand sharpening, sometimes, if you're not careful, you will exceed 45 degrees. So, here's my plane. We take the lever cap off, take the blade and chip breaker out. This thing called the frog holds the blade. Now, this is a bevel down plane. Bevel's on his side, that sits underneath. Okay? So as long as none of these bevels, whether it's your primary, your secondary, or your tertiary, as long as they don't exceed 45 degrees, everything's honky-dory. But if anything exceeds 45 degrees, here's what happens. Instead of the toe catching in and biting, the heel touches, or one of the 3 heels, right? There's going to be a heel on the 25, there's going to be a heel on your secondary, there's going to be a heel on your tertiary. So somebody had put and had put the last bevel, the tertiary, at higher than 45. So if you had your blade out enough, you would catch a shaving, but then it almost like it scoops and then it comes out. So I checked it, and the easiest way to check it is just to put it in the plane, or put it in something like a combination square, and run it over. And if it bites, you're good. If it slides, well, you've exceeded the 45 degrees. And sometimes you have to go back to the grinder and start over. And
Frank, what was the question?
You just want to talk a little more about it.
Yeah, talk about the issue of sharpening your blade.
Yeah. So, when you're doing it, and this is where you might want to get an angle trainer. There's my angle trainer. Little device, it's got a 29-degree side, and it's got a 31-degree side. So the idea is you're going to come over to your first stone, which would be your 1,000 grit, or your 500 if you're Jake. Hold the blade like that, set it on the primary bevel. Well, the primary bevel is going to hold it at 25. You don't want to sharpen all of the 25, so you're going to come up a few degrees. Park it there. You do your secondary bevel. When you step over to your 16,000, find your primary, come up a little bit above that. Don't go above 45. What this does is helps you kind of get a feel for where those angles are. It's not designed to be your sharpening device. It is not a jig. It is a training tool that will last a certain period of time. You're eventually going to wear it out. But to get that feel of where 29 is, it holds it there, doesn't interfere with how you hold the blade, so you get a feel for that. And then you take it off and you put it over here on this one. That's 2 degrees higher, that's 31. Same thing, hold the blade, engage, slide forward. Now it supports it at 31, and you get a feel for where 31 is. Believe it or not, you do enough of this and you kind of get a feel for where those angles are. You don't have to do 29 and 31. The secondary bevel need only be higher than 25, so you're not doing the whole bevel, but cannot exceed 45. The third bevel, the tertiary, doesn't need to be 31. It just has to be higher than the previous one, but not higher than 45. That's all there is to it. Okay, next, Rick.
Probably eating.
Yeah, I noticed. I'm keeping my throat lubricated.
All right, so this question comes from Quebec, Canada, from Guillaume Pichet.
Guimont?
Which saw should I purchase first?
You're only going to buy one? Well, first, Dovetail. I assume you're doing hand tools, and Dovetail is what everybody wants to do. So you Dovetail, this is going to get the most work. You'll use that more than anything else. Second one, now these are my fancy ones, but it's whether it doesn't matter what you buy. Oh, should show them that new triple bird's eye that we just got out there. Rex, don't drop it. You know, I put that bird's eye saw that we just were working on today. Yeah. Remember not to touch the brass, but bring that to me, would you please? This is a crosscut.
You should point out that they should be bought relatively close to each other.
Well, as soon as you get into it, you're going to realize, yes, you need this. It's like saying, which stone should I buy first? Well, you need them all. This isn't a buy one, buy another one later. You need them all when you get started. It's like buying a table saw and saying, well, I can't afford the blade right now, so I'll just have the saw. Well, you may as well have left it at the dealer store because it wasn't going to do you any good. So who's this one for? Just
Thomas.
his first name?
Elon.
Tom? So I just finished this saw on the weekend. This is AAA bird's eye. Isn't that incredible? This is a joinery crosscut.
It's actually showing up really well.
Yeah, that is a gorgeous piece of wood. And I got a little more of it in case you get hankering. Now I'm going to get in trouble from Luther again.
I'm going to put that back.
Tom, that will be in the, I'm just waiting for the box to be finished for it, and that'll be in the mail for you on Monday. Thank you. And I may as well just tell you, the third saw you're going to get is your medium tenon. So this has a different tooth, same size, same frame, but it has a different tooth configuration. These teeth are designed to cut across the grain. I'll do my little demonstration because it always works. So here's how it is. We've got crosscut and we've got rip. Those are two different types of cuts. One is when you're cutting parallel to the grain. The other is when you're cutting across the grain. So I'm going to take a 1/8" chisel, and this is going to mimic a rip tooth. So if you were to look down the blade of a rip tooth, what you would see would be a bunch of little chisels. Now they would just slightly veer off to each side. That's the set. You can't have zero set because the saw will bind in the cut. So the teeth look like this. They just stick out a little bit, and that just gives enough clearance so the blade doesn't bind. But if you use a rip saw, when ripping, you end up with a nice, clean cut, cutting parallel to the grain, and those rip teeth are designed to pull out chunks of wood like that, nice and clean. But when you're cutting across the grain, it doesn't work that way. See the mess that it makes? It's not actually that bad. It's a bit of an extreme example. So a crosscut has the teeth are three-sided. So those teeth,
Shaped
like the point on this. So the outside of the teeth make slices of fibers on that side. I'm turning it around so and the teeth on the other side go there. Actually, I should have made that the same size.
Shape.
Yeah. So there's 1, 2, 3 sides. Not exactly the same, but similar.
Just the same.
And then you have the ability to then go in. Yeah, I didn't get it wide enough. I'll just work to one side. So then as you cut, the fibers are constantly being severed ahead of the teeth that are removing the fibers. And what that does is ensure that you have a nice clean wall right here. as opposed to a mess like that. So they look the same, they weigh the same, but there's a different tooth configuration. And this is one of those situations where the better you get, the more skill you develop, the fussier you're going to be, the more demanding you're going to be of your tools. My advice to anybody buying hand tools, buy tools that are better than you. Then you're never going to reach a point where you say, I got to get something better because I'm now better than my tools. Buy the very best tools, you never have to replace them. And it allows you to eliminate the equipment excuse. Okay? Next.
All right.
How's our audience?
We have 617.
And vets here are that I've seen
Oh, I forgot to mention that.
are Kevin Burris,
Hey, Kev,
Paul,
brother.
Pete,
Paul Morrison,
yeah, Paul Morrison, Pete,
Paul down in
Aussie Land.
Aussie land,
yes,
representing Canada well. Pete Ambrose.
Ray,
Pete, Cool Ray. The same ones.
Patrick
Get to
Tackett,
say, you don't get to say that. Patrick Tackett? Patty Tack?
and
Yes.
Bob
Bob who?
Abbott.
Oh, Bob Abbott. Robert. If you are one of the 88 combat wounded veterans that we have hosted in our classes, any one of the last 13 classes started in November of 2016, and you're on here, we would love to acknowledge you and give you a shout out. So please, that's what Megan's watching for. But you got to write in there, Bob at Abbott, class number whatever, worst guy in the class. That's how you remember me. What?
Class clown.
Class clown. Just kidding, Bob.
Also, we've reached our
Who?
first.
Our first 1,000, so we will be
Okay,
giving
all
away
right.
100.
Every 1,000 increment, we're gonna draw for another $100 gift certificate.
Wait. Are we drawing for $200 gift cards now, or did we just reach the
We
threshold?
just reached the first one.
So now we're only giving away 100.
Right.
Okay.
So if we get to
Oh, Gary Burnett
2,000.
is also here.
Huh?
Gary Burnett.
Hey, Gary. Got a nice email from Gary. And Gary, you're part of our family. So I loved reading your email. I shared it with the other people. And yes, it's just, this is awesome to count you people as friends. Gary's a Vietnam vet.
All right.
Okay, yep. Jack, when are we gonna do Jack? Yeah, are Loren and Annika?
We're going to do
Not that I've
Jack
seen.
first. We'll answer one more question, then we'll get Jack on.
Loren and Annika, if you're on, say something so that Megan knows and she can tell me. Okay, go ahead, next question.
This comes from Nick Farmer in the chat. Why is crosscut not used for ripping if it creates a cleaner cut?
Where did this come from?
From Nick.
No. Was this tonight? A
Yeah,
fresh
this is
question?
in the chat. This was
Okay.
20 seconds
So
ago.
the question is,
Why is a crosscut not used for ripping if it creates a cleaner cut?
well, why is a crosscut not used for ripping? So let me show you. It will cut, but it's slow. And the way the wood fiber is, the rip tooth works better cutting parallel to the grain. So let me try to make this as honest as possible. So I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4 strokes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 strokes to get the same distance. I'll do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'll actually push harder on this one. Okay? Try it, you'll notice. It's the way the wood fiber grows. A rip tooth, you're gonna have to go back 500 years and ask the question to the guys that first came up with the idea. But a rip saw will work more efficiently, probably the best word, cutting parallel to the grain, and a crosscut will work more efficiently and cleaner, cutting perpendicular to the grain. You can still cut perpendicular with this, it's just this cuts even cleaner. And
Plus, it's not It's not. It doesn't clean. It doesn't provide a cleaner cut.
Okay, all right, here's the truth. I need to sell more than one saw. Go ahead, next.
Well, we have Jack ready,
Jack,
I think. Actually, he looks frozen.
give me another question while you're figuring out
He's in
those
Texas.
issues.
He can't be frozen.
Yeah. Okay, this comes from Pat Pierce from Inwood, West Virginia. Could you please go over
Pat?
the prep and sharpening of a marking gauge?
Yes, that's easy. So, if you're buying a marking gauge from us,
There is no prep.
there is no prep. We make the marking gauges. I've always felt if you're providing hand tools, it's terribly unfair to sell somebody something that's not ready to be used. They barely know how to use it, maybe don't even know how to use it, and you're expecting them to figure out how to fix it. That is not right. So we sell our hand tools so that they are actually ready to be used. If I needed to sharpen this, here's how you do it. Take the cutter off. And I used to go way up to the high grits, but you know what? You don't need to. You can use, it's a good place to use your trend. Take your cutter, lay it face down, get your finger on there, or your thumb. I'm gonna have to grab it like this. And just face hone, like that. So all you're doing, flat side down, you're just doing little circles. Don't put too much pressure. And just keep doing that until you can feel when it's sharp. You'll feel a sharp edge as opposed to a dull edge. And then if you want to test it, before you take the time to put it back in the cutter, just see if you can slice across a piece of softwood like that. And that gives you a nice clean cut, then it's ready to go. Now, the only other thing I would say about setting up a marking gauge, you want to make sure that the screw or whatever holds the cutter on sits down below the head, particularly if you're doing dovetails our way, where you're going to go in and you're going to measure the thickness of your saw blade, actually your kerf. You want that blade to lay perfectly flat on the side of that plane so you get an accurate measurement. So you can't have that screw head sticking up too high. And if yours doesn't have a flat spot, put a flat spot on it. Then you're not chasing it off the edge of your bench. That's all there's to it. They're really simple. And now, time for a little wee commercial, a tiny one. What we like to do, I find there's just so many uses. You get a marking gauge, and you start to discover, wow, this thing is really versatile. So there's our 5/8 diameter cutter. There's our 7/16 diameter cutter. I don't know where my other one is, my other two, but I also have, there it is right there. There's my 1/2 inch diameter cutter. And if I looked hard enough, I find a 3/8 diameter cutter. And the nice thing about it is, depending on what you're doing, you can just switch it out, and instead of having to take the cutter off, just switch and put in the different rod. It's just really convenient. So we sell them right on the rod. And then you're not trying to find that little Allen wrench that you can never find that is required in order to take that one out.
All right, we got Jack queued up here. So.
All right. So let me give you a brief introduction. One more commercial before we come to Jack. So these are our T-shirts. These are not fundraisers for the Purple Heart. These are awareness raisers. We have to run our business. We have to be profitable to be able to do this. If you want to know, all of our saws that we make right here, when you buy a saw from us, 10% of that goes to the Purple Heart Project. That's how we raise the money aside from what we donate. The reason we did these shirts is we want people to advertise for us. Not advertise for us. I shouldn't have used the word advertise. What I'm trying to say is we want you to make everyone aware that there's such a thing as a Purple Heart Project where combat wounded veterans can come at no expense to themselves and be given an opportunity to learn a skill, something that people call distractive therapy, to help them cope. I'll talk a little more about this when I introduce Mark, who just started working with us last week. But here's the t-shirts. We have wood doing good, wood is good, and the new one is wood for good. You should get all three. And then our logo's on the other side. And I have got people, I so appreciate it. People email me all the time, say, Rob, I wear my shirt every day. And the other day someone asked me about it, and I told them all about it, and they actually have a cousin who's a combat wounded vet, and they're going to tell them about it. Hopefully that will result in somebody hearing, finding out, applying, and we get to bring them up here, and who knows, might change his life or her life. So I'll try to make this quick. About 2 months ago, I woke up in the middle of the night and I said, how have I let this go this long without doing something about it? We've brought in 88 combat wounded veterans, 1 from Australia, Ash, 4 from Canada, 83 from the US, 3 of whom were females. We bring them in, we get them all excited about these new skills, we send them home with all the tools, and then they don't have a bench. And they're going home and trying to do this. I've taught in some pretty crappy shops, and people trying to work on a bench that was sliding all over the place or just would not support the wood, and it's frustrating. I said, we got to fix this. So I thought, you know what, there's a ton of people out there that would love an opportunity to do something good for a combat wounded vet, but they don't know. What do I do? So we got this idea. I'm going to let Jack introduce it. But Jack more or less came to me and said, Rob, I would love to be the one to head this up.
Jack's on the screen just to your left. Yes, you can put your arm around him.
That him? We've never met in person. We talked a lot, shared a lot. Anyway, I'm going to let Jack tell you the story because, you know, if you want something done, find a Jack. And he's got a hold of this thing like a bulldog. And he thanks me almost twice a week, if not more, for allowing him to do it. Well, Jack, thank you for doing it. So I'm going to let you take over. You got a little speech prepared? Have at it. I'll come over here so I can see you.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks so much for this opportunity to talk tonight. And greetings to everybody from Bench Brigade headquarters. We're in an underground bunker in somewhere in the Southwest. So that's not true. I totally made that up. We're in my garage in Cibolo, Texas. And one thing I wanted to clear up, Rob several times over the course of this thing is referred to me as the commander of the Bench Brigade. I'm a retired enlisted guy. We don't do commanders. I'm a retired Air Force Chief Master Sergeant. So we're the ones that work with the commander behind the scenes to make stuff work. So I think of Rob as the commander in chief, and I'm the command chief. Tonight I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Bench Brigade, but before I do that, I want to speak just a little bit to the Purple Heart Project. We were in the cabinet shop business about 10 years ago, and we sold that cabinet shop and came out here and looked for a job that was going to pay and not starve us to death. And I didn't think I was going to ever work with wood again, but about 3 years ago, I got interested in woodworking again and started putting my shop back together. And I started going out on YouTube and looking to see what was out there. And so pretty soon I came across this guy named RobCosman and was rediscovering hand tools. It doesn't take very long when you're looking at Rob Cosman's videos that you hear something about the Purple Heart Project. Well, hand tool woodworking and vets. You know, at first it doesn't sound like something that would make much sense until you, if you've been a woodworker and you understand how how you can get engrossed in the woodworking and how that can just take you to a totally different place. And it's a lot of fun to do, and it takes a lot of focus to do it. I can totally understand why this has caught on with the Purple Heart Project and why it's a valuable resource for our wounded vets, because it does. I know it gives me an escape to get out of the day-to-day grind and go and just have some fun and spend some time in the shop. But as we've gone through this last few years and been watching the videos and watched Rob talk to the vets, I've gotten to meet some of them virtually myself and talk with them. And I have absolutely no idea how this works, but I kind of do understand why it works. And it's just because of what I said a minute ago. It's a distraction. It takes you to a totally different place, and you're just able to escape from what's going on around you for a time. Now, I went through 22 years in the military and never got a scratch, and I'm very blessed to be able to tell you that. But and also saying that, I am in absolutely no way qualified to speak on behalf of these wounded vets that Rob and Colonel Luther bring into the Purple Heart Project. My war was Desert Storm and the Cold War. That was, in one case we had an enemy that wasn't willing to fight, and the other war, that was the nuclear war that never came, thank goodness. And so I never got to be involved in the kind of operations that so many of our wounded warriors have experienced. But I have been associated with the military most of my adult life. I work for the Air Force now, and I have met these guys that have come back from Iraq and Afghanistan, and I've seen the things that have gone on with them. In fact, I have two family members, two sons-in-laws that they were fine, well-adjusted young men before they went to Afghanistan, and they went over there and they came back just devastated men. And so this is close to home for me. I've seen the negative effects of what goes on there, and I've really tried to help these guys deal with this, while at the same time I've watched my daughters cry with the things that have gone on in their lives after this has all happened. So the Purple Heart Project is a great thing. It's a wonderful thing. Tell everybody go out and from an enlisted guy's standpoint that was not, I never have, wasn't wounded, I don't have PTSD, but I do understand how this can help those guys. So wear your t-shirts proudly. If you don't have them, go buy them. And there's a guy out there I'll challenge you to, Daniel Ging. He's got 14 t-shirts and he wears them proudly every day. I would encourage it, and that's before the new t-shirt came out. So I'd be a Daniel, go out and get your t-shirts and tell everybody about the Purple Heart Project. The bench brigade is the thing I've been working on for the last 2 months, and I thank Rob for letting me do this. The bench brigade is probably the coolest thing I've ever done in my life. It's certainly the most rewarding. If you haven't heard about it, what we're doing is we went out with a call to try to find 36 people that were willing to donate their time, talent, and treasure to build a workbench for a wounded vet. And we asked for 36, and so far we will probably hit 80 after tonight's presentation, because Rob always gets a string of folks that volunteer, and he sends those on to me, and we get you added to the list. What we're asking people to do is source their materials, and provide the 2 sheets of plywood, 1 sheet of MDF, and we would also encourage you to ask the businesses that you work with to donate that stuff. And then also a part of that is we want the bench brigade volunteers to ship the benches. Now, what I'm going to try to do, if at all possible, is to pair you with somebody that you can actually take the bench and present it to them yourself. That much more will come from that. But and if we can do that, it's much better that way. You actually get to meet that vet, and there'll be hopefully that bond that's born out of that, and it lasts. So we'll give you the bench video if you volunteer, and and that's pretty much the underpinnings of the bench brigade. And one point of business: we need people in Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi. So if you're in those states now and you haven't volunteered, reach out to Rob or reach out to me, and we'd love to get you volunteered. And we have met, also we got a Bench Brigade Facebook page now, and I want to give a shout out to Eric Eberhard and Chris Shahusky. They're the ones that are moderating that web page. Chris is also the person that works out our shipping for us. He's done a fantastic job of getting that set up and going for us. So that's one of the great things. So far, we've only had to ship 1 bench, but more will come, we're sure. Now, through this all, as we've gotten in contact with these Bench Brigade volunteers, I've met some amazing people, and I'm going to tell you just very briefly about a couple of them. There's a guy named Danny Bell. Danny Bell is he's a wonderful soul. He's just a fantastic guy. He's been through the training and hands workshop as a wounded vet himself, and now he's building benches. So that's fruit that's bearing fruit out there. And Danny's just a great guy. The first time I ever talked to him, I asked him how he's doing. He said, "I'm just a big old mess." And you know, and then he went on to tell you why he felt like he was a big old mess. But he's a good guy, and he's probably the best testimony of all about how this has worked out. There's another guy. I would be totally remiss if I didn't mention Rick Schmidt tonight. Rick built our first bench, and he did a fabulous job on it. But I got to tell you, through the whole thing, Rick was a pain. He complained. His jack burning the plywood, the batteries burning the plywood. You know, just having so many problems with this. And we finally got that bench built, and then it was like Superman broke out of the phone booth. He said, "Man, let me have the next bench. Jack, let me get that one. Come on, let's get this next one going. You got your started. Let's race." And that's not true. I totally made all of that up except for the part about racing. But he's been very enthusiastic about doing this bench building. So thanks, Rick, for all that you've done. Rick and Dr. Sean Harper are our first two bench builders to complete benches and hand them off. And they both thankfully re-enlisted for the bench brigade. So we're real happy for that.
Who got those benches, Jack?
Chris Cosman got the first one from Rick, and I'm glad you mentioned that. Chris Cosman got it, and Rick got kind of carried away with the crate for that bench. So Chris, if you're watching out there, you know you can probably make another bench out of that lumber that the crate came in, or maybe a deck or something. So think about that, and just want to bring that up to you. And Dr. Sean Harper's bench went to Neil Weatherhead. So we still owe Neil advice, but we're working that part of it too. Daniel Miller, Bench Brigade, Arkansas. Daniel is 17 years old. He's getting ready to go off in the fall. He built an amazing, or he's about to start on a bench, and just an amazing young man. And Daniel, you know what we talked about, buddy, I'm proud of you. And just thanks for being you. And there's one last guy I wanted to mention. That's Ed DeSanctis up in New Hartford, New York. Ed's put together a bench brigade team up there, and it's his three daughters and three young men that he's mentored in woodworking, and then a couple of more folks there. But Anthony Arabia is going to head off to Norwich University with a full ROTC scholarship in the fall. Robbie French is a senior in high school. So he is a senior. He's getting ready to go off and study physical therapy. Juice Macera, college sophomore, and studying sports medicine. And then Ed's daughters, Ruth, Gabby, and Emma, they're in there with him working, and these guys have all committed to build a bench. And of course, I would not, Ed told me that his bride, he didn't mention her name, but he said she was looking at the credit card bill and saw something called Magic Wax on there, and she was like, "What in the world is that?" And we thought you'd already bought a plane. So, Ed, I could take those kinds of questions from my wife. It's those dreaded, terrifying words. What did I say? Those are the ones that really scare me. I can deal with the ones that come in about the credit card bill. But he's got a couple of folks. Jerry Mozzie is helping him build these benches, and Mr. Matt Grant, who's an Albany, New York firefighter. So these are some of the amazing people. I could go on and on for hours about this, and Rob told me to keep this at 7 minutes, and I'm at about 10 now, I think. So let me go ahead and just close this thing out. I do want to give a shout out to the San Antonio Woodcraft Store folks. Mr. Paul, Mr. Rick, Trevor, Bill, thank you guys for all you do for us, and looking forward to some partnerships with you in the future. And Rob, again, brother, I thank you for letting me talk about the bench brigade tonight. But most of all, I just thank you for trusting me enough to let me do this. It's been the most rewarding thing I think I've ever done. So there you go, brother. Back to you.
Thank you, Jack. You guys are in good hands. Keep it coming. So I'll call it out again. If you are interested in being part of this, we actually supply the vise and the bench dogs. So your cost is the materials. It's not bad. You'll feel so fantastic about it, you won't care what it costs. But remember those 3 states that he mentioned, Georgia, Mississippi, and Alabama, were the 3 states? That must be we have vets in those areas that we need bench is for.
We had someone named Adrian in North Alabama, and he said, sign me up for the bench brigade. So
Good,
we'll
good.
put Jack in contact
Just
with him.
email me, and I'll forward it to Jack. Rob at RobCosman.com. Okay, let's go. Questions.
All right. This question comes from Patty Tack. Can Rob go over setting up the mortise marking gauge?
Oh shoot.
Oh, where's my mortise gauge? You stole it?
I probably sold it.
No.
Yeah, you can. Grab a new one.
Patty, well, let's go to another one. Come back to that. Rex, could you go get me a mortise and gauge, please? While he's getting that, we'll go on to another question.
Okay.
Patty,
All right.
I won't forget you.
I also forgot to mention that Angie's here.
Angie, oh yes, Angie. She's a year older. Angie had a birthday last Sunday, sorry. Or was it last Saturday?
It was Sunday.
It was Sunday, but we
right,
talked
sang
about it.
birthday on Saturday. Hi, Ange. And did fantastic. Angie, this is Angie. Angie takes care of our t-shirts. So when you get a t-shirt, there'll be a little picture of her with an A on there. So that's a Angie seal of approval. And she did a great job. We took out a lot of t-shirts, and they just all came back, and they just look perfect in those bags. You do a fantastic job.
Lynn's birthday was actually on Thursday.
Oh, really? So Angie's sister Lynn just had a birthday.
And I
And
think
if-
Ken's is on Monday.
Oh my goodness! Everybody's born this month.
Oh,
And
Anthony's-
Annika. Okay, well he's gone. Give us another question.
All right. So this question comes from Philip Robertson in North Bend, Washington.
Philip.
I've got my plane as sharp as I am able. How do I deal with tear out on figured maple?
Okay, so
We had a piece.
if you are dealing with any figured wood, the sharpness of your blade is first and foremost. And as many times as I've had to try to diagnose this for folks, when I took a look at it, if they were in a class or close enough to me, and I looked at it, it was almost always that the blade wasn't as sharp as it should have been. So just make sure that that is. Actually, is he not the one that said he'd actually had his shavings down less than a thou? That might have been somebody else. If you can pull off 1 thou, half thou shavings, then your blade is in good shape. So number one is how sharp is your blade. These are factors in eliminating tear out.
Factors listed in order of importance?
Yes. Number two is going to be the thickness of the cut. So if you're taking too heavy of a cut, puts a lot of pressure on
We
the
got
wood
that.
fibers. I want that big piece of birch that you had.
Oh, the birch?
No, the piece, it's right here. Was this the piece? Yeah. So here's a piece of maple, actually. Now, it's got some swirl going on here. It's got some knots. If you have too much blade projection, you will tear the wood. So you have to have minimal projection. The next thing I would do, so 1 is sharp, 2 is depth of cut, 3 and 4 I'm going to put side by side. You can close the throat down, and to close the throat down on your plane, if you have a bedrock style plane, that would be a Wood River, a Lee Nelson, an original Stanley bedrock, a Clifton. Closing the throat means the gap between the edge of the blade and this part. Let me put a mark on here so you can actually see. Jake, you're missing over here. This arrow, that part of the sole of the plane, and the blade, that creates the throat. And the narrower that throat, the better it is at supporting the wood fiber. So let me show you this little demonstration. Here's your plane blade coming along, merrily cutting wood. Here, this is going to represent where that arrow is. Jake, over here. Okay. As you move the two closer and closer, now what happens is, as you're planing, and the wood fiber changes direction and now starts to lift up, if the throat is really tight, that bears down on those wood fibers, not allowing them to lift and tear. And in order for that to work, your throat has to be literally the thickness of the shaving you're bringing. And remember, you're going to have a really thin shaving. Thank you, Megan. So, on my plane, there are 3 screws on the back side. You loosen the 2 outside. They're called frog retaining screws.
You grab, on your 7 doesn't have a blade or anything, and it might be easier to show.
I'm going to actually do it here.
Oh, okay.
The center screw, as you turn it,
I can't see anything.
you can't? Why not? Oh, I can't either. As you turn it, it moves the entire frog assembly forward. So I'm spinning this clockwise rotation.
Oh, you should point out that it's also on a slightly.
I'm going to get there. Okay, keep moving it. Yeah, I'm watching the gap close. Now, as Jake mentioned, this frog sits on a ramp. So as you move it forward, the blade is going to project. So I'm going to have to stop, pull the blade in, get it so that it's just barely projecting. That's going to allow me to fine-tune that setting. And I can go in here, close it down some more. Now when I get that, excuse me, so that I just barely see light, then I'm going to tighten up each of those frog retaining screws. That holds everything nice and secure. Now, I have no idea what this blade's like, but we're going to find out. Now, the real secret to eliminating tear out is RobCosman's magic plane wax. And if you believe that, I've got something to tell you. That's just to lubricate the sole. Now, blades
And eliminate tear out.
and yes, blade is fully retracted. As I start the plane, I'm going to start spinning the adjuster knob so I can sneak up on this. Remember, I want a very, very light cut. Now that was cutting a little heavy on the right, so I'm pushing the blade over by moving the lateral adjustment lever in the direction of the high side. Oh, that's way too heavy of a cut. I went too far. Pull that back in. Oh, this is the blade that you, Jake.
Got him.
That was the blade that somebody put too high of a bevel on. That's why it didn't work.
I sharpened it at 45.1, so he would barely notice.
Now, Dave, Super Dave, I understand what you go through. Is Artis on?
Yes.
Oh, so big shout out to Sister Benson, Artis Benson, up in Alaska. She's Dave's mom. It's not her fault.
Bless her soul.
Don't blame her. But I was talking to her yesterday, or today. Yesterday. We're going to see her on the 5th. And I have to remind Dave that you remember, your mother always knows best. Okay, so we're going back. I had to readjust this because that's the original blade. It's 125 thou thick. And this one happens to be an IBC blade, which is 140. So because of the thicker blade, it closed the throat down too much. So I had to go in there and I had to pull that frog back a little bit. Now I'll snug that up. Now, I'm slowly advancing that blade. Now, I might have that too tight. Okay, have a look. I'll put something white behind here. Can you see?
No.
You can't?
Well, knowing that I don't see a gap.
Does that show up?
Only on the corners.
Okay, that might be too tight. I can see light through there. See if I can get the blade to project without bumping into the... Little heavy on the left. Now you're going to be limited when you got that throat turned down like that. It's too tight. You're going to be limited in the how thick your shaving can be. So that's the nice thing about having a bedrock style plane. It just takes 10 seconds to make this adjustment. You try to do this on a normal plane, or what I would call a consumer line plane, and you've got to take everything apart, and you essentially can't do it accurately. Okay. Still picking up a shaving on the left. I went a little bit too far. There. So there's no extra room. I'm having to pull that shaving out. So that throat is tight. I'm taking a very light shaving. The blade is sharp. And as a result, now I'll let Jake come in there. Jake, come in there and look really tight. So get as tight as you can on that.
I assume you want it on the knot.
Yeah, go all around there, go down there. It's nice and smooth. You can't tell anything about that by rubbing your hand on there. It's perfectly smooth. So that would be number 3. And I said number 4, I would put them neck and neck. Number 4.
Number 6.
Is it already?
Where's the 6?
Over here.
Yeah.
So you'll notice on that blade, it says HA, high angle. So on a normal plane, the blade is pitched at 45 degrees. On this blade, instead of taking it apart, I'll just show you. On this blade, if you look really close, I have prepared a 20-degree back bevel. And it's about 1.5 millimeters wide.
Can you give that in inches?
No.
Okay.
Okay? So now, when the blade is sitting in the plane at 45 degrees, typically the way you would calculate your angle of attack, or the angle that the blade's meeting the wood, is just on a bevel down plane, it's the angle that the frog is. But in this case, you've got this other angle up here, so now you take the 45 and you add to that the 20 degrees, because instead of hitting it like this, it's actually hitting it like that, right up at here at the cutting edge. So that means your effective angle is now 65 degrees. Well, 65 degrees is a lot harder to push, but if you're dealing with figured wood that just does not want to respond otherwise, if you go and put on that 20-degree back bevel, you may very well find that that is the solution that you're looking for. Now, I only use it if I have to. This is easier. When you put that extra bevel on there, it's noticeably harder to push the plane, but you'll end up with no tear out.
You should point out that it's closer to a scraping as well, so it
Well, you're just, yeah. I mean, I hate saying that because sometimes it makes it sound, you're not scraping, you're cutting.
Yeah.
But if you've ever used a scraper, if you ever used a scraper plane, that's a hard push as well. So those are your four best bets. Sharp blade, light cut, closed throat, increase the pitch. And if none of those will work, throw it away. Get yourself a scraper. I can't think of a domestic hardwood, regardless of the figure, that you can't plane. You get into the exotics, sometimes the only thing you can do with those is scrape. Okay?
Except for the top on your standing desk.
The top. That was nasty.
You had
Next question, Frick. Oh, Patrick's.
Well, we actually have some special guests.
Who do we have?
We have your daughters here.
So I'm going to briefly introduce you to Annika. Annika is child number 8. By the way, this is all same mother. 7? Yes.
I'm gonna keep her.
So here they are. I can name them.
She's on the left side.
Okay. I can name them. Erica, Carissa, Rex, Jake, Loren, Kenzie, Annika, Bo, Mitch, and Chloe. And I know how old they are. And I happen to remember this morning that this happens to be Annika's birthday. She is 19, so happy birthday, Annika. She's probably grinning ear to ear. So Annika and Loren both live with Carissa, my second oldest daughter, out in Calgary, and Beckham. And Loren now, both of them, more so Loren than Annika, because Annika's a bigwig now with Winners. That's a clothing store. Yeah, so if you buy something from RC Woodworking, the second time you make a purchase, which we're waiting for, you're going to get a phone call. And that phone call is going to say, thank you very much. This is Loren, and this is Loren. So say hello to Loren. Hi, Loren.
Hello, friends.
Say hello to Annika.
Annika.
Hi, Annika. Hi, girls. How are you? Nice weather?
Great.
Nice weather?
Oh, it's beautiful here. It's very green.
It's Calgary. It's usually snowing out there. I love to tease them about it, so they'll come home. Okay.
We love talking to all the customers. They're all very polite and kind.
Good. I've heard some good comments about you already. Annika, I said last week, Annika's very sharp. She misunderstood me. I meant brilliant. She thought...
That's exactly what he didn't mean. And I just wanted to clarify that I'm a very pleasant person to talk to.
Yes.
So she's not sharp, is what she means.
Yeah. I'm quite dull, actually.
We will leave that alone. Thank you, girls. Hey, don't forget your donation tonight, Purple Heart Project.
We won't. Got it.
Get yourself a T-shirt.
Talk to you soon.
Jeff O'Connor wants us to mention that Jake's the least favorite child.
Howdy, Jeff. Jeff is one of our combat wounded vets that was in our class. You heard from Jeff. He actually was one of the ones that we had introduced it. He and Jake are buddies. And Super Dave, you put 3 of them in.
He was the reason we considered going to just voice instead of voice and video.
You put the 3 of them in a room, you'd want to leave.
Ebby's here,
Hey, Abby.
as well as Brett Lawler.
Brett.
Yeah.
And I can't name the class, but I know the individuals. But
Colby Cradell is a vet that is coming to a future
Colby.
class.
Colby, yeah. Which one?
He's in Dave's.
Oh, he's in
batch.
Super Dave's. Good luck with that. Good luck, period. Hopefully everything will work. Let me show you how to do. Let me show you how to use the mortise engage.
Also, we've reached our second 1,000.
Good. So now we're giving away 2 $100 gift certificates. Super Dave kicks in there. We'll get up to 3,000. So a very good friend of mine in Ontario's name is Paul.
Who might be on.
He's been on lately. We call him Paul Brassman because he used to take care of all of our brass parts. I'll tell you a little bit about Paul. Paul is I would call Paul a fabricator. Paul's also a genius. So even though he's not necessarily a woodworker, he deals more with metal. And he has a website called oceansmotions.com. He's big into saltwater aquariums. So he makes all kinds of very unique pumps and parts and all kinds of stuff like that. But if I've got an idea, I just call Paul and I tell him my idea, and the next thing you know, we have a product. So we've collaborated on several things. If you're trying to learn dovetails, I have what's called a dovetail trainer. And I had the idea, Paul executed it, and we ended up coming up with this. This fits on the end of your saw. You put your saw in the vise so it's standing plumb, and you get the bubble level so it's right on the middle bubble, and there's 3 notches on this side. One has it so that it tips your saw at 10 degrees to the left to cut that side of the tail. The other one, when you do it that way, tips your saw 10 degrees to the right, so you cut that side of the tail. The idea is because that's on the end of your saw, instead of a guide, you're getting muscle memory from holding that saw in that position while you're sawing. And you're checking the bubble level to get it right. And it doesn't take very long before you'll know 0, 10, 10. It's amazing. It's like you get little built-in notches right in your wrist. So Paul has been invaluable to us. And we've got some more cool stuff coming. But yeah, it's just Paul's a great guy. So why did I mention? So Paul came up with this idea. I gave him kind of the idea, and this is what we came up with.
Chisel.
Huh?
Grab a chisel.
All right, so here's how you do it. And the problem, I wasn't just looking for something to sell. I was trying to solve a problem. I didn't have what I found, well, it was a good mortising gauge. So you just swap them out. So the little brass thumb screw, you unscrew that and back it off. And then this cutter moves. You take if you don't know this, and if you've never chopped a mortise by hand, you may not, but when you're chopping mortises and cutting mortise and tenon joints, everything is gauged off of your chisel. So if you want a 5/16 wide mortise, you take your chisel, you set it in between the 2 cutters, then you tighten it between the 2 cutters, and then you tighten this down, and that locks it in place. Now, you get your piece of wood in the vise. You're going to center it, assuming. So you just get that until it's approximately your eye by eye, it's centered. Lock it, push it down like that, leave a couple little marks, flip it around, come to the other side, and it's not quite centered. So I come in and adjust it slightly. Push down, move over, and there they're lined up. Now, when you drag this, you hold onto the little handle over here, and you're always pulling this way because these 2 cutters cancel each other out. What I mean by that is this. A normal marking gauge, you always have the bevel on the waste side. And when you're dragging that through the wood, the bevel is pulling the tool this way, keeping the head tight against the side so you never have to worry about it wandering on you. Well, on this, each one cancels out the other, so it will wander. That's why you hold this, and I'm always pulling like this, and I find it better that you take a light pass and then come back to make it a little bit heavier and a little bit heavier. Now, I only use this for laying out the tenon. When you're laying out the actual mortise, I don't like to have 2 lines. I find it very difficult to hold my chisel between 2 lines. You're sitting there and you think you're beside one and you look like you're on top of the other. For me, it's confusing, my small brain. I like just 1 line. So I do it like that. I come in and I hold my chisel flushed right up beside that line and go ahead and chop it. So I use this for my tenon. Really, I should call it a tenoning gauge.
Right.
You could use it to lay out your mortise, but the problem is now you have the bevel on the outside. And it's not that big of a deal, but that's how I use it. So patty tack, there you go. Good question. You get 10% of any we sell. Go ahead, next.
All right. Where was I? Ray Stedgemuller from Hamilton, Texas wants to know if we sell maple syrup in case lots.
Oh, yes, Ray. We'll sell you the whole tree. Tap it yourself. Well, just a quick little story. Would you get Rex grab me all the sizes we now carry? So I want to tell you this little story. First of all, you got to remember, and maple syrup gives that a whole new meaning. Jake and I...
Maybe we should have one that says wood is delicious.
Jake and I went somewhere one time and we found...
Would taste good.
We found, I don't know, some really dark maple syrup. It was amber. That's what they call it. And it just has a very rich taste. So we found a local supplier. These guys have been in business for 150 years.
Yeah.
They started back in the early 1800s. It's actually coming up on 200 years. And this has been an exceptional year for sap. So in case you've never seen this done, you go in and find a sugar maple tree, and you bore a hole in the tree on the sunny side, and you drive a spigot in there, and the spigot has a little hook where you hook your bucket. And you always do this in the early spring. You want cold nights, warm days, and the sap will run. And sap is water. In fact, it's got sugar in it, but it's a 40-to-1 ratio. And you collect your sap and you boil it all down. And when you get down to the right ratio, you get syrup. It's delicious. Anyway, this particular one is really good. These guys, we went to see them. They have lots of sap, but all of their store accounts are closed because of this kind of COVID thing. So anyway, we've been sending a little bottle of maple syrup with every order we get that goes in a box. If you order something that goes in an envelope, you're not going to get one because it'll get damaged. And people started asking for it. So we said, well, shoot, Jake, why don't we provide it to them? So we now carry, is he gone to tap a tree?
He might not be able to know. He might not know where it is. It's on the rack.
It's on the rack right there.
Yeah.
In boxes.
No.
251.
No, we don't carry that.
No, the 250.
So here are the sizes we have now. 500 mil. This is what Michael chugs this. In fact, I thought we ought to have people call in, come up with ideas on what to use it for. And this is the 100 mil. And we also have a 250 mil.
That isn't available.
And I hear, I don't drink coffee, but I hear it's fantastic in coffee. My daughter makes all kinds of stuff for me. Then she uses that instead of sugar. Great stuff. Order yourself some maple syrup. You will absolutely love it. We've had people tell us that hate maple syrup. They drink this by the bottle because it's so good.
We have a few people in the chat saying it's the best they've ever tried.
I agree. Okay, next, Rick.
Okay, so this comes from John Denoya from Colonial, New Jersey.
By the way,
Colonia.
the maple syrup is on our website under miscellaneous. Go ahead. Hi, John.
I see all that you do with hand planes. Do you ever sand a project?
Unfortunately, look at that. There's a sanding block right there. I try not to. I have no joy in sanding. The only time I do is if you look at this, the color that you get from, actually we had to sand that, didn't we? The color you get from a hand plane surface can't be surpassed.
No, I think we did plane that. We had to sand the lid.
Anyway, occasionally I do have to sand something, but never would I start with anything coarser than 220. Usually it's just 320. So just learn to use a hand plane and you'll just swear off a sandpaper. We use sandpaper on the lathe. Kind of hard to use a hand plane there. Next.
All right, so the next one comes from George Leonardos from Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Hey, George. So George has this beautiful cabin that I stayed at whenever I used to go up there and teach. They'd always put me in George's cabin, and it is the coziest. I don't know how many 100 years old it is, but it's fantastic. George is a good friend. What's George want to know?
So George wants to know why you do not use Holdfasts.
Oh, yes, Holdfasts.
I've seen a number of situations where they might be more efficient than the rigs you have set up to hold your work.
George, I never did. Sorry for drinking in front of you, but I have to keep my throat lubricated. I never used a Holdfast. I've seen them used. and just never get into the habit of using one. So I'm not saying bad or good. I don't use them. I don't use them. You see me, I always put a clamp on there when I need to hold it. But yeah, I see lots of folks use Holdfasts. I have no objections to them. Next.
John Crane from West Point, New
Hi, John.
York, wants to know that he doesn't see you working with oak very often. Is that just personal preference or some other reason?
Don't take offense to my answer. But when you go into a fast food restaurant and if all of the decor is oak, that's long past when you should stop using it for furniture. That's my opinion. I find red oak to be an extremely coarse wood. I don't think it has any qualities that I want, with one exception. I had a fellow give me a piece we were doing a show in Ontario this past year, and he gave me a piece of oak that came off of a river bottom that had been down there for several hundred years. They dated it based on how the log was cut. And it's, how many growth rings?
31.
Normal oak you're buying today is going to have 9 to 11 growth rings per inch. And this one had
31.
31. It was really tight. So we just had enough to make some saw handles that we've been doing. That's the only exception. But no, I typically do not like oak. I do like white oak. It wouldn't be very high on my list, but I do like white oak. But I wouldn't build anything out of red oak. Just too coarse. Too coarse and not a very pretty wood. Almost gaudy. Okay, next, Rick.
All right, Bob from Texas wants to know what is the
Hi,
best way to protect quality planes, chisels in a non-climate controlled
Rex,
workspace?
run out and grab me a plain sock, please. Okay, I'm going to pass on this one until Rex comes back. Go ahead, Rick. Next.
Pat Hardy in Petrolia, Ontario wants to know how many shooting
Pat.
boards you have.
Not enough. Well, there's my used all the time shooting board, which is almost time to be redone. And then here's my 45-degree shooting board. And this is just a spare shooting board. And over here, behind this beautiful piece of English walnut, here I have 2 extra long shooting boards for doing long edges. I don't square ends with this. And there's another long one. And then I have another big long one that I put away somewhere, and I use that for when I'm making the marking gauges.
Dovetail marker.
Dovetail markers, sorry. Oh, and I have our little one that we're going to start selling soon. We're going to make. Haven't completely designed it the way I want, but it's really convenient to have a small shooting board that you can use in conjunction with a block plane for doing small parts. So we're going to make that. And we recently started making one that is ambidextrous. So one shooting board that has a track on both sides, so you can use it left-handed or right-handed. So yeah, shooting board is the one implement after a hand plane that will do more to improve the quality of your work than anything else. Here's the absolute best way to take care of your planes. If you're in a shop where you have to deal with moisture, you have the option of oiling them or waxing them. That's a pain because you got to take it off every time, and any area you don't get off gathers dust, and then it's yuck. So these are silicone impregnated tube socks. It's got a drawstring on there like that. Put your plane in there and it won't rust. When you want it, just take it out. Don't worry about any silicone getting on the plane. Never had an issue. They're not very expensive. We have them on our site under the miscellaneous.
Or hand planes.
Yeah, there's 4 different sizes. There's a small one for block planes. There's a medium-sized one for scrub plane, number 4, 4.5. Any of the smoother sized planes. There's a jack plane size that'll fit your 5.5, your 5, and there's a jointer that'll fit the big number 7, number 8. That is I found out the hard way from doing wood shows and showing up the first time and having rust over everything. When we started using these, that went away. Never dealt with the issue again. Good question. Next.
So etched, I think is his name, in the chat says, why don't you use frame saws?
Frame saws? When I think of a frame saw, I think of a Tafrid Scandinavian thing. I made one, actually I made a couple. Just, it's kind of like people ask me, why don't you use Japanese saws? Well, because I'm not Japanese. And I prefer the Western style saw. I just haven't found a need. Everything I do, I get by with perfectly fine with using the panel saws or any of my other Western style back saws that I use. So nothing against them, just not my thing. I mean, I think also of Frank Claus. Frank cuts dovetails. He calls them paint grade dovetails with a big bow saw, which is kind of the same thing. It's in that family. Just not my thing. That's it.
John Costesco
Hi, John.
says, hi, Rob. What's your advice on restoring older Stanley planes? Is it worth it? If so, what's your advice on sharpening and the plane iron?
The answer is no, it's not worth it. And I'll tell you why. I used to teach a class, did it for several years, on restoring old planes. We actually developed a blade, a very special blade and chip breaker that would allow you to put this big, monstrously thick blade in an old Stanley plane. So the Stanley planes, Rex, would you go grab me a plane off the wall, please? And make sure it's the one that has an original blade in it. They're skinny. So Stanley's blades were anywhere from 70 to 85 thousandths of an inch thick. Now, this blade is 140 thou. So for comparison, it's almost double. And the best Stanley plane with an original blade on a piece of hardwood, you plane it and you hear this high, I wouldn't call it high pitch, but you hear this noise. And what it is, it's vibration. High vibration, thank you. Here's a bedrock number 5.5. But look at the thickness of the blade. Oh my goodness, I can't even get that out. Am I getting weak?
Loosen the cap screw. Oh my gosh, the blade there.
Could have done that. Take the lever cap off. Now this represented, excuse me, the best planes that Stanley made. So it would be a 6. The bedrocks always had a 6.0 in front of it. So it was a 604, 603, 605.5, 607, 608. Usually it had bedrock on the cap, on the lever cap, and on the sole somewhere. And these could be adjusted from the back. They have the 3 screws. But look at that little thin blade.
So this plane would represent the best that you
This would have been the best that you could buy. This was their bedrock series. However, you can't compare that. If I'd had time, I would have sharpened this up and shown you. But
You can't?
No, it takes too much time. It takes too much time. I have never done this, and this is in bad shape. So first of all, if you're trying to freehand sharpen, you've got a little wee tiny primary bevel, which is very difficult to find. Now I'm going to get a no, 2 3/8. So here's the difference in the 2 blades, okay? It's substantial. And that pays a huge dividend in that it doesn't vibrate. However, this plane, Jake and I weighed, we took the two 5.5s, and the bedrock was how much?
We need to be more accurate.
Yeah.
It was just over
somewhere around 4 pounds. And the 5.5 Wood River was
just under 7.
Just under 7. That's huge. So when you plane with this, if you don't know anybody, you think, oh, this feels great. But when you compare it to this feels solid as a rock. There's no vibration. It's just, wow, what a different feeling. And you got to try them side by side in order to appreciate it. So the answer to your question, would I restore the old ones? No. Here's why. You're going to have to replace that if you want any kind of performance. And if you want to buy, for instance, an IBC blade and chip breaker set, that's going to cost you in excess of $100. You're going to put in a fair bit of time. I would guess and say if you've never done it before, you're going to spend half a day on it. And there's some work to be done, and it's got to be done accurately if you want the plane to work. So you're going to put in, let's say you're going to spend $120 and you're going to spend half a day. You can go out and buy this for another $160. And it's essentially ready out of the box. And the performance difference is night and day. And this is the Wood River. If it was a Lee Nielsen, you're going to spend even more. And again, you've got so much better of a plane. If that belonged to your grandfather and you wanted to revive it for sentimental reasons, by all means. I have a video called Hand Plane Revival, which takes you all the way through the process of what you do to get this thing all set up and running. And we sell the blades if you want to buy the extra blade for it. But would I spend any time on the original blade? Not a minute. Not a minute. Not interested. No matter what you do, you're never going to get the performance out of that you're going to get out of that. So I say, and I can't sell Wood River planes in the United States, so I'm not doing this to get your business. But I would say go buy a Wood River plane. If you are willing to spend the money, go buy a Lee Nielsen plane. Either one. You'll think that you'll thank me. Okay. Next.
Bob Canova from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania wants to know router planes, large versus small, and open throat versus closed throat.
So we just looked at that the other day because I had no idea what the open throat versus the closed throat was. So this apparently is the open throat. So this is what they had originally. They've added, they being Lee Nielsen, added the closed throat. The closed throat, instead of this being up like this, it's just flat. It goes right across there. I can't see any difference in terms of using it. Maybe in this big one. What I like about the small one is the support of the sole is very close to the blade. Whereas on this one, the support is quite a ways away. So if you're using it to adjust the thickness of a tenon, let's say you just cut your tenon and it's not exactly, the sides of your tenon are not exactly parallel to the sides of the board. Well, what you can do, this is not a very good example, but you're going to have to use your imagination here. So here's your cheek. Here's your tenon. You go in there and you would set that and you would run it like this to make that surface parallel to that surface. Well, I want as much support over here as I can because in pushing this like so, as the blade engages the wood, it's going to want to pull down like that. It's nice to have the support of the sole really close to the blade. So if I was going to buy them, excuse me, if I was only going to buy one, I would buy the small one first. I think the large one does have its value, and I would definitely want it in my arsenal at some point. Closed or open, I would go with the open. Maybe a little bit easier to see, but it's a 51-49 split, so you'll be happy with either one. And I do definitely, somebody else asked the question, I'll just go ahead and answer it. You buy the Lee Nielsen version. There's another version out there. The Lee Nielsen has a square cutter. So when you tighten this down, and this is huge, when you tighten this down, what you're doing is, it's on an angle, you're driving this cutter that way. So it's referencing this face and this face against the sides, and it holds it firmly in place. There is no movement. There's another one out there that is actually round. So you're tightening against a round cutter, and if you hit something hard, that will shift and turn. This is the better of the two, in my opinion. Okay, next.
So just so you know, we
Good
passed 1,000
We already said
viewers.
that.
No, viewers.
Viewers. Oh, okay, that's great.
So maybe just remind them that if even if everybody donated just $10, we could give away 10 gift certificates tonight.
Well, let's go beyond that. Wouldn't it be interesting? I'm not going to say it's not going to happen. If everybody donated $10, that would be $10. That would be $10,000. What would we do with $10,000? Well, each vet we bring in, we used to say it costs $3,500, but actually it's probably closer to $4,000 because now each vet gets a bench. We supply the bench hardware, the vise and the bench dogs. The volunteer supplies the materials and builds it and ships the bench. So how many did you say? 10,000. That would take care of 2.5 vets, cover the cost entirely. I don't mind doing it. I enjoy it. The benefit you get out of this goes far beyond anything money can measure. If you'd like to participate in that, then by all means, do it. You'll love yourself as a result. $10 from everybody. That'd make my phone go crazy. Good idea, Frick.
Just give me 1 second.
So how many $100 prizes are we giving away so far? 2. How close are we to 3,000?
2,500.
We're at 2,500. Okay, so every 1,000 we give away another $100 gift certificate at the end of the night, and we're getting close to the end of the night. We got another 10 minutes. I just wanted another quick commercial. Their new Wood is Good T-shirt, Wood for Good. And you got to have all 3. Did you hear what Dan? He wears one every day. Isn't that who? Daniel
Gang?
Gang, yeah.
And he bought 4 of this one, he said. in
He
the
what?
chat. He said he bought 4 of this one.
Did he?
Yeah.
He's such a good guy. Okay, question?
Jim B in Ontario wants to
Hi, Jim.
know for a
A
lever.
lot of Canadians tonight.
Yeah. For a lever cap, do you recommend, or what's better, hinged cam or thumb screw is one preferable?
Oh, well, so what he's asking is, I don't think I even have an example of, well, yeah, we do. We have it on we have it on here. It's not a traditional
No, but
plane.
the low angle jack does.
Yeah, I don't have it here.
I know.
So this is the lever cap, and the purpose of the lever cap, I got to remember, sometimes not everyone understands what we're talking about. So there's your blade and chip breaker as it sits in your plane. The lever cap, or lever cap if you're in the US, goes on there like that, and as it grabs that, as that screw engages it, and you push down on this lever, that applies pressure. You'll notice that there's a gap between the chip breaker and the blade, purposely, so that when you put pressure on the back of this, all that pressure transfers out to the cutting edge to help stabilize it and prevent it from vibrating. So the traditional style was a lever, which the nice thing about that is every time you take your blade out, or take it apart, sharpen it, put it back, you don't have to come in and readjust it, because this is just going to bring it back to the exact same spot in terms of how much pressure is being applied. If you're using not that it's a big deal, this is a screw style lever cap, so when you put the blade in, you just tighten that up, loosen it to take it out, and snug it up to put it back. I wouldn't be upset over either one. The lever was traditional, and that's why I'm used to it. Okay, next.
Bob Morrison from Tennessee
Hi, Bob.
wants to know how you infilled the gutters between the lanes.
Yeah.
Workshop.
Yeah, I read these questions. I went there and read all these questions. There's some good questions.
Actually,
What?
I'm pretty sure Bob's the one that bought those red oak river bottom saws.
Oh, yeah?
Did he still wait?
So this was an old bowling lane. Well, nice solid maple floor. Why take it out, right? But you had gutters where Jake would always throw his ball.
No, they had the bumpers in. I never got.
Oh, yeah, the bumpers? Oh, maybe it was Dave that was. So what we did here, this is 2 layers of 5/8" plywood. Good friend of mine in Ontario, Tim, got me a whole bunch. Well, there's a Ford plant up there that was changing the racking system, and they were throwing out this 5/8" plywood. And he got it and gave it to me, and we must have had 150 sheets. So there's 2 pieces of 5/8" plywood glued and screwed together. But what we did, and we had to go the entire length, there's a support. When they put these lanes in, everything has to be perfectly level. So there's a whole bunch of cross members and then wedges. So every place where there was a cross member, I used my combination square to measure the depth from here to the cross member. And then Jake would measure them and I measure them. But anyway, we would cut a piece specific to that size, less the thickness of these 2 pieces. And we would glue it and screw it in place, glue it and nail it in place. So then when we dropped this in, it sat on all those supports, and then we just screwed this down all the way.
Center as well.
Huh?
We
Is
had-
the ones in the
yeah.
center too? Yeah. That's how we did it. The first time it was done, it wasn't done properly. I won't mention who did it. Nobody here. So Jake and I had to take it all up and redo it. And we got a couple of squeaks. It drives me crazy every time I step on it. Probably won't ever get around to fixing it though. Next.
Jim Clark from Westmoreland, New Hampshire.
Hi, Jim.
Says he's building a crosscut sled and he wants to know, how can I take out some slop in the runners?
Jim, if you got slop in your runners, you got to make new runners. So when I make my runners, I usually make them out of a piece of maple. I saw them on the table. I take one. Here's a little tip for you. I hand plane one side of the runner, and then I rip it close. And when it's close but not quite, then I use my shooting board and I take a pass and check it. And take another pass and check it until it just fits in there. No slop at all. Build your sliding table, and then it'll be a little bit sticky, but with your blade down and out of the way, you move it forward and back, and it'll leave black burnish marks. And you go in and you can take the edge of a chisel. I'll show you. We used Osage orange on this one. You can take the edge of a chisel or a scraper and just go in there and just scrape those burnish marks and go back and try it again and just keep doing that until it finally slides in there just right. But if they're already too sloppy, start over.
All right,
Next.
that's good. Out of 10.
What?
Do your little spiel.
What?
One last good. One last really good.
Wasn't ready. Let me just see if I
You in a
can
hurry to go home, Frick?
Well,
Yeah, he's the one cutting the time now.
Yeah. What are you, stealing Megan's thunder?
Yeah.
well, Chad wants to know what makes one brand of plane so different than the other.
What makes one brand of plane? Well, the
Quality.
knowledge of the people making them. There are an awful lot of hand tools being made today by people who have no idea how to use them. So I'd simply say to that, if the person making it doesn't know how to use them, they can't evaluate whether or not it's good, bad, or indifferent. So that factors in. Materials. Even today, there are planes being made. Stanley makes their planes out of gray iron or cast iron. That means if you drop it on a concrete floor, there's a good chance it's going to break. Wood River and Lee Nielsen make theirs out of ductile iron. Stabilized so it doesn't move after it's ground, but it's the strongest tensile steel, so if you drop it, it doesn't break. Then, of course, there's the accuracy. If you buy a plane that is out of flat on the sole by 4 or 5 thou, really? Do you want to go through that effort to have to get that into an acceptable tolerance? I don't. So I would suggest you look at the materials that it's made out of. You look at the tolerance to which it is built. You look at how well machined surfaces are. You buy a new plane today, there's brands out there. You take them apart and you look at the face of the frog, and the face of the frog is painted. And if you take the frog out, you'll see the bottom of it, it's painted. These need to be milled surfaces that have positive contact, so there's no vibration. The purpose of this is to hold that at a fixed angle and not allow it to vibrate. In order to do that, the materials have to be nice and dense, and all of the mating pieces have to fit well so that they do not allow for any of that vibration. And you can't get a good fit if you've got thick paint between two pieces. It needs to be milled surfaces. If you take this apart, and I'll close with this because it'll take me a second to show you, but I'm going to take this out and show you what I mean. So I'm loosening the frog retaining screw. Screws, pull them out with the pins, and you see two nicely milled surfaces, and they touch, and that does not vibrate when you're using it. And they use all the available surface. Compare that to a Stanley that you're buying off the shelf today, and you'll be lucky if you've got the surface area of a dime that's making contact. So, and then of course you want a blade that's made out of good material. The better the plane, the closer it is to being in ready-to-go condition. And the less expensive it is, the farther away it is. In some cases, too far to even deal with. All right?
So we just received a donation from Mr. Robert Steele. I'm not sure if he wanted us to let everybody know that, but he paid for a full vet himself, $3,500.
Wow. Robert, thank you. And I thank you on behalf of the vet that ends up coming. That is awesome. And you just need to know that you quite possibly pulled somebody back from the brink. And I hate to say that, but these guys come to us in very severely broken condition, and they go away on a better path. So your money will be well spent. I want to introduce you to Mark. So Mark, Canadian Army, 1 tour in Haiti, and I think 2 tours in Afghanistan. And Mark was a combat engineer, which means he went out looking for roadside bombs. And Mark suffers from PTSD bad. He applied for our program. Unfortunately, we had over 80 applicants, and not everybody gets in. And I hope he'll apply again. But he's local. So he came here a week or so ago, just to visit, say hello. And in the process, he was telling me a story, and your heart bleeds for these guys. And I said, Mark, why don't you just come work here? I said, I'd love that. I said, and we'd love to have you. So Mark comes now. I hope we can get him 5 days a week or 6, and just great. And he said the other day, he goes, Rob, I just absolutely love being here. I said, no, I can't tell you how much I love having you here, because we're getting stuff done that we would never have gotten done. I'll give you a tour soon.
Especially with Super Dave here.
Oh, yeah. Well, Super Dave only comes to fish. So we're taking our shipping room. Our business has done this in the last several months, so we've outgrown everything. So our shipping room is being expanded into the laundromat we used to have. Mark took the laundromat out. We're building into the shipping room. We're going upstairs. We'll have offices and more storage space. So I'll give you a tour of that. But just, I can't say enough about how incredible it makes you feel to help these people. And I say these people because out of society, how many people put their life on the line for strangers? These people do. We owe them big time. We'll never be able to fulfill that debt, but anything we can do to help alleviate what they're going through, we do it. And I tell people all the time, how do you pay for it? I said, I don't care. I don't care. We just plan it and the money finds us. I will never stop doing this, and I will certainly never stop doing it because of finances. The money will find us. Nothing's not said on that. Thank you for your support. So how many are we giving away tonight?
Angie and Lynn also donated $100.
Well, thank you, ladies. We appreciate that. How many gift certificates are we giving away? Sorry, I've been fighting laryngitis for the last 3 or 4 days.
Is that what they're calling COVID-19 now?
Yes.
Some people in the chat do believe you should get checked, just in case.
Yeah.
And then now, we all have to get checked too.
So
Again.
we are currently at 68.
68?
Jeez,
So somebody make it 7. We need $200 more so we can give away 7 $100 gift certificates. That could be a record.
Which, by the way,
what?
are from us.
Yes. So the gift certificate comes from us, not coming from the donated money. This is what we do to help you do what you do. One big happy family. So are we there? Or is the delay such that it hasn't caught up?
No,
Okay.
Once you mentioned, my audio's dead. But once you mentioned that, ask everyone to donate money, a lot of people stepped up.
Oh, wow. Awesome. Thank you, folks. Listen, we're going to keep doing these. Next week, we're back working on Angie's bed desk. We're building the drawer, the side-hung drawer. You don't want to miss that. Now, I got to tell you a few things that Jake is supposed to remind me, but he didn't, but I remembered. You need to make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. And somewhere, what?
Somebody wants to know how Ash is doing in Australia.
I've been talking to Ash all week. He just sent me the first quote for materials, and Jake's going to wire them the money for that. That's building materials on Monday, and then we're going to deal with getting them some tools as well. So thanks for asking. So you need to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't. There's a bell. Where's that bell, Frick?
Well,
Right over here
it's
somewhere?
usually after you subscribe, it's
Right.
connected to the
There's a
subscribe
little
button.
bell, and if you hit the bell, every time we come up with a video, it will notify you so that you can stay abreast. If you like it,
Thumbs up.
thumbs up, give us a like. And if you know somebody that would enjoy this, tell them, share it. Anything else? Oh, and we have a newsletter. Don't forget the newsletter. Show the Colonel some love. Sign up for the newsletter.
Exclusive videos.
Exclusive videos. You might even get a visit from the Colonel. Is Luther on?
Yes, he is. He's been answering questions with.
Attaboy. Attaboy, Luthi. And if you love, here's what I need, a little bit of feedback, please. So Luther, he's kind of like, what's Luther like? He's like a pit bull. He clamps onto something and doesn't let go. So he clamped onto the website and made incredible transformations in our business. And that started with him telling me that my website sucked and he could fix it, and he did. And he taught Jake. Now,
I taught him.
yeah, you taught him. He looked at the YouTube and he realized how powerful that is in growing not only our business, but growing the Purple Heart Project. So he's taken that on. He and Frick do that. And you look at the thumbnails and you look at all the rest of it. Tell us what you think. Tell us what you think about the new look of the RobCosman.com YouTube channel.
He's been unveiling some new banners tonight too. So.
Oh, yeah. We'll call him the Banner Boy. Anything else we need to say?
No, I think we should do the draw.
Did we make
Do
it?
we have a final?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, we are almost at 8,000 now, so we're about 7,700. So thank you, everyone.
Where's my applause button? There it is.
Can we just save again?
We heard it.
Okay.
So Megan's an American. Give her a plus.
Applause.
And 96% of the guys or people that come to our workshop are U.S. soldiers. This isn't supposed to happen 2 weeks in a row. So the highlight of her summer, now if you're married to Jake, you'd understand this. The highlight of her summer is getting to
Just this summer.
Take care of these guys, feed them. And she comes back every night and she makes strawberry shortcake and brownies and cookies, fatten them up. But I understand why she does it. I get it. Okay.
Megan also has a cousin who's a Marine that just returned from Afghanistan.
This bird is his first child, so we really appreciate what you guys do for us. And we really appreciate all the donations to support this cause.
So I think we're coming in at 8. Yeah.
Hey, maybe if we stand here and cry some more, we'll get more money. I think of Danny Bell, and I think of the sacrifice that Danny has made and his family has made over his years of service, and they're all like that. I mean, Danny was part of an organization where they had to go. They didn't get much warning, so a lot of his life has been up and gone, leaving his wife to take care of everything. And Stinker, not knowing where his dad is. But that's all changed now. Danny's retiring, and he's going to be around, and things are going to be just dandy. Dandy Dan. So let's do the draw. How many are we giving away?
8.
Well, let's give away 9 just for fun. So draw 9 names to give away $100 gift certificates.
All right. Are we ready?
Yeah.
This could take a while.
All right, number 1. We'll try and get through this as quick as possible. Joe Jones from Rhode Island. Number 1.
Congratulations, Joe.
Number 2, Mike Theobald from Ontario, Canada.
Hey, Mike.
Who wants to put
And
money?
we get some Canadians. Hey, quick. So we've had 4 Canadians so far in the Purple Heart Project. We have, how many more Canadians coming this summer? How many in Luther's group?
I couldn't. 3.
I
I
think
think it's
there's
3
3.
and 4. 3 and then 4 and
3 and then 4. That's a record. And we don't care where, so we don't care, that's not a nice way to say it, but it doesn't matter to us where they come from. We do this like triage. Who do we think, based on the information we're given, we think need it the most? And it just so happened that we ended up with a bunch of Canadians. Now that's possibly due, I know it's probably due to a junior, also known as Tony. And Tony has put together a meeting where I got to go up to a local base, and we did a one-day presentation, and we had a lot of people apply as a result of that. And same thing Danny did down in Clarksville, Tennessee. And we had five combat wounded vets got selected for this summer that came from the presentation I did at Danny's place. Danny had 32 combat wounded vets there.
actually we had more than that. Because we've got some in Luther's classes too.
Oh yeah. So, you know, if I had a one more Danny in the U.S. and one more Tony in Canada, we'd find all the guys. Well, we'd do a lot better finding them. Anyway, I salute you, brother, you boys. That's fantastic.
And I don't think we mentioned it, but it is Memorial Day weekend, so it is a good weekend.
Yes, it is. We don't have that in Canada, but yes, I thank you for bringing that up, Rick. This is Memorial Day weekend. Now, Megan, Memorial Day is when we honor the war dead, and Veterans Day is when the ones that are alive. So a big salute to all of those who have paid the ultimate price.
All right, so our next winner was Robert Smith from Michigan.
Robert, congratulations.
Is that number 3 or 3? Yeah.
3.
Okay, number 4. Number 4 is Dean Rampy from Anchorage, Alaska.
Dean. I know Dean.
Number 5, Joe Weschler from Virginia.
Congratulations, Joe.
Next up is Simon Niedakowski from Birmingham, England.
Hey, Simon. Nice to have one over there.
That was number 6 or number 5?
That'll cover shipping.
Daniel Else from Virginia.
Daniel, congratulations.
Ken Stewart from Kansas.
Ken, congratulations.
What number is that, Megan?
I lost track. I was counting more donations.
This is the last one.
Oh, this is the last one. And our final winner of the evening is Robert Coogans from the UK, also.
Hey, Robert. 2 UK. So that was 9?
That was 9.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Appreciate this. Thank you to our vets. Big salute. Luther actually taught me to salute, but I've already forgotten how. But I did it when we did the picture for for the new t-shirt. Don't forget to get your t-shirts. We got lots of them in stock. I'm gonna get Jake to put together a package of 3 so you can have one of each. And we will see you next Saturday night. Watch for our YouTubes all this week. Don't forget to tell us what you think of our new look. Always like suggestions as well. Thank you to Megan. Thank you to Jake. Thank you to Rex, our gopher. Thank you to Frick, the man behind the
Mistakes. I mean, electronics.
the smooth process tonight.
We've had 2 good weeks here.
Thanks to Luther. Thanks to Super Dave. Thanks to Ken,
Angie,
and
Lynn.
and Lynn. And
Annika and Loren,
Annika
Jack,
and Annika and Loren, and happy birthday, Annika, 19.
And we just had another $500 donation, so we're ending the night at $8,500.
Okay, well then let's
Thank
draw
you.
one more name.
All right.
Can we do that?
Yeah, we can do that. I still have it up.
We
here.
make the rules.
All right, our real final winner is Marty Bartholomew from Colorado.
Hey, Mark. And lift up. So remember I told you somebody had suggested that we do the tool thing. So Marty had wanted to, Marty didn't want to tell this. But anyway, sorry, Marty. It was Marty's idea that we possibly have it so that people could buy a tool that they donate. And that was Marty's suggestion. And that's Marty who just won. So congratulations, Marty. Good things come to you. All right, you guys have a good weekend. Stay safe. We'll see you here next Saturday night. Take care.
Okay.